I just want to say before I get started how incredibly lucky we are that we have Antina, who is an amazing music director. So she's not afraid for us to learn new music, which is awesome. So this week we're going to continue our sermon series on Parkdale's 3 core practices, and a few weeks ago we began this series by talking about building connections. And I urge each of you to look around you to see who's missing. And I truly believe that in order to build a strong community, we need to start caring about one another, stepping up for each other, and reaching out to each other, especially when we notice that someone's not here on Sunday morning. When we build a strong community, no one is left behind and everyone feels included. When this happens, Parkdale will grow. And last week I talked about living faith, about getting excited about the good news, that no matter what we do or we don't do, we are all unconditionally loved by God. We need to live our faith out loud. We need to share it. Be proud of who we are so others around us get excited too. So this week and next week, I'm using the Beatitudes to talk about acting for justice. And why is social justice so important to Parkdale? How does it differ from charity? How can you be a part of our social justice movement at Parkdale? And social justice is just one building block that helps us to build connections and live out our faith. They all combine together to make Parkdale great. So my sermon today has 2 parts, and I just want to review before I start the social justice part, the difference between social justice and charity, and then I'll dig into the Beatitudes. So let's start by talking about what charity is. So charity is private, it's an individual act. It responds to an immediate need, provides direct service like food, shelter, or clothing. It requires repeat actions, like giving the apple every day. It's directed at the effects of injustice, the symptom caused by not having a living wage. Charity is satisfying. It's not controversial, and you get immediate gratification from it. So examples of charity are providing temporary emergency shelter, a food bank. We make sandwiches for the drop-in center, or we do a clothing drive. Those are all examples of charity. So charity is very necessary in our world, and it provides help to people in emergency situations. However, the problem with charity is it doesn't fix everything. It does not fix why there's a problem in the first place. So then comes social justice. And social justice is public, it's a collective act. It responds to the long-term needs. It promotes social change in institutions. It resolves structural injustice. It's directed at the root cause of social injustice. It's exciting, can be controversial, and you don't always see the result of your work, and that's why so many people don't love social justice. So some examples of social justice are campaigning for a guaranteed livable income, taking action in the fight for climate change, and actually maybe being willing to spend more money on groceries or clothing in order to support a local farmer or a producer. So as you can see, social justice projects are a lot more work than charity. They require a long-term commitment and a lot of energy. And next week, I'm excited to talk about some of the social justice projects that Parkdale is working on and how you can get involved with that. However, right now I want to look at the Beatitudes. what they have to say about social justice, because there's a direct correlation between building connection, living out our faith, and social justice. And the more we weave our core practices together, the easier they are to live out. So the Beatitudes, interpreted correctly, offer us a way to grow in ethics, live out our faith in a just and peacemaking manner. So Matthew also wrote about Beatitudes, and they're a little bit different than the ones read in Luke. So here's what Matthew wrote. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who are hungry and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. So the main purpose of the Beatitudes is to inspire Christians to live accordingly to the traits Jesus described. Some of these simple acts are simple and some are grand, but they all form the cornerstone of the ideal Christian lifestyle. Therefore, living out the Beatitudes is very important to be a disciple and how to live by the words of Christ. The Beatitudes begin with a call to leave the many demands of life in the valley and ascend to the peaks to hear a deeper word, a fuller word. We are called to be poor of spirit, to turn inward and see those things we are not able to let go of. The things that we cling to that must be released. It's only when we are empty that we can be filled up again. We are, in fact, asked to come and die, to allow the small seed of ego to dissolve and disappear, to break through the constricting skin to a fuller and richer. A resurrected life will emerge. And the more we allow ourselves to be emptied of our agendas and imperfect notions of identity, the more we feel the sense of kinship and solidarity with others, i.e. building connections. But we will also become acutely aware of the gap between what we long to be and who we truly are. In this tension between what we aspire to be and who we know that we are, we learn what it is to mourn with those who suffer. And the more we allow ourselves to feel such pain, the more we seek to do something about it. It is through this longing to do something about suffering and justice in the world that we are walked into the meaning of meekness. Unfortunately, meekness has been misinterpreted. Meekness does not mean passively accepting what is. Meekness means correcting our desires and bringing them under control for goodness. And the hunger of goodness is about an unquenchable desire to ask questions about why there is suffering in the world. The first three Beatitudes then are about transforming of the inner life, the necessary issues that must be faced before we step onto the stage of our outer life. We are invited to be poor, to let go of our ego. And as we walk this path, we are offered the gift of feeling for the injustices and the suffering in the world. The more we allow ourselves to be filled with this deep love, the fullness of God, the abundance of grace, the more we open ourselves to allow to be reshapen and reorient our desires towards good instead of our inner self. And this is a meaning of meekness. The inner life, now prepared and properly attired, is ready to enter into the spirit and the truth and the outside world. If we are willing to die to our ego, if we truly want to be one with God of love, which is also the God of justice and mercy, only then we will ask why there are injustices in the world and what we can do about them. Jesus makes it quite clear that the inner life leads to hunger and thirst for injustice. Unfortunately, we have translated and interpreted, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for justice, as blessed for those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. And when we do this, it reduces the meaning of righteousness to personal admiration. Jesus is in fact calling us to be seekers of justice, seekers of the common goods. And when the deeper vision of this verse becomes reduced to a private and personal desire to live a life of holiness and integrity, we mute the text as power and its fullness. An interest in spirituality that lacks the hunger and thirst for justice is distraction from what we are called to do and be as disciples of Christ. Again, justice is about asking why there is poverty, why is there injustice, and what can we do about it? This quest for justice must always be balanced by concern for mercy. Blessed are those who are merciful. Jesus never separated justice and mercy, and we can't either. Those who have spent a lot of time in the outer world of justice and mercy know only too well the hurts and the harm that can come to the heart. Despair and skepticism can come to dominate the day, and dark clouds can circle the soul. And this is why Jesus brings us back to the inner life. Blessed are the pure of heart, for they will see God. Life can be difficult, and it's easy to grow bitter, vindictive, angry, to build up those toxins within us. However, we are not allowed to hide away in some righteous dark alley or assume there'll be a quick and speedy resolution to the difficult dilemmas of life. We're not allowed to do that. Blessed are peacemakers. A peacemaker is one who goes right into the middle of conflict and attempts to broker reconciliation. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "Peace is not the absence of tension, it's the presence of justice." Therefore, we cannot separate justice and peacemaking. Peacemaking is an active and conscious decision to be an agent of justice and reconciliation. A peacemaker is a bridge builder between two warring tribes. And Jesus concludes the Beatitudes by insisting those who seek justice will be treated as prophets of old. This means that they will be remembered as living out their faith. The Beatitudes are a version knit together, an in-depth journey into the mansions of the soul, and a call to walk onto the stage to be makers of peace and agents of justice. It is this prophetic vision that is at the ethical core and center of the Christian faith. They are how Jesus lived his life and how we are called to live our lives. If we live out the Beatitudes, our very being will be transformed into this new life, this deeper transformation, this profound rebirth, a delicate blend of God inviting grace and our openness to overtures of love. Here at Parkdale, if we live out the Beatitudes, our community will be transformed. We begin to work together to change the world. And at the same time, we'll be building connections with each other that aren't superficial, but a deep relationship where we care for each other. When we are living out the Beatitudes, we are living out our faith out loud. We are sharing the good news and changing the world for better.